Hello, and welcome to another episode of the MakerSource podcast, where we talk about all things related to startups. As always, this is your host, Bob Merriman, and I'm here today with Brad Johnston, founder of Tanoshi. Brad, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Bob. Thank you very much.
And I think even though I practiced in the pre-call, I probably butchered that. So is it Tanoshi?
You're very close. So Tanoshi.
Tanoshi.
It's the Japanese word for fun.
Very cool. So Tanoshi, and it's the Japanese word for fun. And what is Tanoshi?
So Tanoshi is a Silicon Valley-based startup. We've been around about 3 years now. And what we're doing is developing computing products for elementary school age kids so that every child has an opportunity to develop spelling, reading, math, as well as coding, something that most schools aren't teaching today. Every child as young as 5, 6 years old can start developing those important computer skills.
Wonderful. And so it's interesting. You talk about, that some of that stuff isn't happening today. And so, why do you feel that is an important skill set to get out to kids at an early age?
Kind of goes back to the founding of the company. We had a couple, what I'll call inspirational moments, if you will. One is both my sister and my mother, elementary school teachers up in Oregon, both happened to be teaching around third grade a couple of years ago, 3, 4 years back when we were chatting. And they were pointing out to me that in their classrooms, which were pretty well divided between ESL students and others, that, a lot of kids really hadn't typed on a computer for the first time until third grade when they're starting to take these standardized tests in America today. And there really was a huge difference in test scores. Kids that were used to being on a computer were cranking away, nice and comfortable, getting relatively decent scores. And other kids was kind of, pecking away and a little behind and just nervous to see if they could even hit the right keys and finish their test in time. And that was actually affecting kids' scores, and it's proven that still is today. And we thought, this is terrible. Every child deserves, to have the same opportunity, the same ability to score well and get placed into a good class and, develop, great academic, path, not just because, you do or don't have access to a computer. And this really helps give every child in America the same opportunity to have a bright future.
That's fantastic. And I think you're absolutely right. The access to these types of opportunities and this type of technology is a huge differentiator when it comes to kind of early academic success. So this is an amazing thing. And, I think some people listening in, would hear coding and would think about, someone sitting at a computer with their headphones on, just kind of like grinding away and just typing, kind of line after line of gibberish. So how have you kind of taken sort of what would be an abstract concept to some and put it into a version that could be consumed by a 5 or 6 year old?
So the key with kids is, and really anyone trying something for the first time, is you got to make it fun, right? You got to make an enjoyable experience. It's one of the reasons, again, we named the company Tanoshi, is we didn't just want to be another company building pretty blah, I guess, education products, if you will. We want to make fun stuff that kids want to really engage with. So what we started with was actually partnering with a couple awesome companies. One being a company up in Seattle called Her Interactive, all female founders, basically got the licensing rights to Nancy Drew. And after having done a couple successful Nancy Drew games, they decided to do one that reinvented Nancy Drew as a young, I believe, middle school girl who needs to win her school science project by programming a robot puppy. It really teaches the basic fundamentals of, if, then, else, if you will, and does it in a fun, gamified way. So we've preloaded that app. We've also preloaded Scratch Junior, which, if you're not familiar with it, Scratch has become the most popular learn-to-code app in the U.S. education system. It was invented by MIT. Between them, Google, and I believe it's Tufts University, they came up with Scratch Junior, which is basically kind of a stepping stone going into it. And again, gives kids the opportunity to start exploring in a sandbox environment of how to code, just kind of step 1, step 2, step 3, really basic, make some fun games. and enjoy it in hopes that as time goes by, there's not this mentality that, hey, coding's boring, coding's hard, coding requires all these lines. Later on, you got to start developing those skills. But at the beginning, it's really, let's just make sure step 1, step 2, step 3 works, and it all flows from there.
Very cool. And having 2 young children myself, so I have a little boy who's 5 and a daughter who's 2, I can tell you that both robots and puppies are huge wins. And when you put them together, it's like hitting it out of the park. I'm sure that really resonated with kids. Wait, robot puppy? Oh my goodness! And so I know that there are some other types of kind of learn to code products out there, and we even have one. It's a little robot, and you use this app, and you kind of like build a program, and then the robot does certain things, but it's more like just another game on the phone for the kids. They're not taking away a lesson or kind of building on it, and that's why I thought one of the things with Tanoshi was that it's a computer, and that you've actually built a computer that kids are working on. And so I was wondering if you could just kind of share a little bit about what you've seen and kind of what led to the decision to go with the computer versus some of the other kinds of stuff that we see out there today.
That's a great question. It kind of goes back to why we preloaded some of the choices we've had. So we've actually partnered with a kids coding school down here in Silicon Valley called Whiz Kids. And as part of partnering with them, what we've done is we're developing a curriculum. So to, again, make it easy for kids to develop these skills. So we start with Nancy Drew, you make your way to Scratch Junior, and then Scratch, and then by the time you get to middle school, you might get into Python, and then further on into Java and whatnot. But again, it starts with the fundamentals of you got to make it fun, you got to make it easy. A lot of computers today, they just want you to start right away with the Python or the Java, and that's just not inspiring for kids. You got to make something that makes it fun. When they're at that young age, the most important thing is just capturing their interest. So by the time a child's 7, 8, 9 years old, they've developed their interest for the rest of their lives. So if you wait until middle school or high school to start teaching the kid how to code, I don't want to say you're too late, but they're always, trying to play catch up. Start earlier, they're going to get ahead of the curve, and that's true for everything. Could be just learning basic math, reading, writing, typing. You really want to start young, and that's why we decided to make a computer for kids as young as 5, 6 years old, because a lot of kids today are just, they're learning how to consume. Watch as much YouTube as we can, or other people playing Minecraft or other games. We want to make more of a maker community. We want kids out building. We want them being creative, and we want them to be the future leaders of America.
That's terrific. And with that, kind of shifting focus a little bit, what you have created is it's in comparison to a lot of the folks I talk to who have what we would call kind of a hardware startup, is a pretty far-reaching idea. I mean, you've gone out and built and created a computer. And so just from a technical standpoint and from the beginning, were there times where it felt overwhelming, or is this, in line with experience that you've got in the past? How did you kind of say, okay, we can actually do this, and then execute?
That's a great question. So, to be honest, I mean, we have a great team of veterans. I've been in the consumer electronic industry and with computers for close to 13, 14 years now. Audio engineer has over 15 years experience. We have a lot of guys. Our CTO has been programming for over 30 years, came from BlackBerry amongst other places. So building the product wasn't really the biggest deal. The biggest one for us was building the ecosystem around it, the right user experience. So our device is Android-based. We're going to market with Android 7.0, and we've been working with Google for a while on this thing called the Family Link app. It's a pretty great app, just been out in the market for less than a year now out of beta. And basically what it does is it allows parent to set up their device for their minor under the age 13 and have appropriate age restrictions, parental controls. Every time the child goes to download a new app, mom and dad see what it is and they can approve or deny. When the child goes on the internet, there's some filters built in, basically we're Chrome Safe Search. So the child can still research and do their homework, but hopefully they won't be stumbling across, websites they shouldn't be. This age group, which no one's really focused on making a great premium product for yet, we thought, we need to do it. We need to make sure every child's developing computer skills, that there are time limits built in. We do build those in for the parents because you got to get outside and play around as well. But then when you're on the computer, you should be having fun, and the parents should know that the child's safe and they're learning.
That's terrific, and I love to what you said kind of there at the end about that time limit and recognizing the need for other stuff, and that's just terrific, and I think that will absolutely resonate with a lot of parents as well who are already kind of fighting that battle with phones and iPads and video games and trying to get the kids to unplug a little bit. So that's a terrific feature. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that product development journey, and if there were features that you just in your mind said, okay, this is everything we're going live with, and as you got closer, if there was anything you had to pare down and say, gosh, there's some things that we're going to have to cut and look at a generation 2, just to get the product out there.
I think it's a question every product manager goes through. So we definitely did cut a lot of stuff out to get our MVP product to market. When we sat down, we spent a lot of time reading hundreds and hundreds of online reviews from competitors, also talking to dozens and dozens of parents, doing focus groups. And what we found was, there were dozens and dozens of different features people wanted. So what we really had to do was hone it in and say, okay, what are the most important features? And what we found were, number one, and this is really important for anyone in the hardware space to understand, you got to make sure the product's affordable. If you put too much into it and you make it too expensive, you're gonna struggle to find an audience. We wanted something that you'd be able to find on Amazon, at Walmart, and Toys R Us, and that's exactly where you're gonna find our product, a $199 MSRP. So we made a computer that's super affordable. We added the touchscreen in because we know kids, they want their apps, they want the touch, they want the fun. But of course, something that includes all the productivity apps, Google Docs and Sheets, and some of these Learn to Code and other educational apps that we're adding. And also, very importantly, again, was being age appropriate. There's a lot of computers out there on the market today that, if your parents are tech savvy enough, maybe they can spend a weekend figuring out how to customize things. But at the end of the day, 95% of Americans just want it to work. The main reason was that's what the consumer said they wanted. That was most important to them, and that was most important to us.
Yeah, and that's such a great point. And for anyone listening who's preparing to launch a product or working on something now, I hope they took some notes there and highlighted something that sounded like customers dictate features. Because I think that was an absolutely incredible story, and how you guys came up with that, because it never ceases to amaze me how many people we talk about or talk to, that say, here's my product and I want it to do this and I want it to do this, and when you sit down and say, well, does anybody else want it to do that? There's kind of a puzzled look, like, well, why should I care about anyone else? And so it's interesting. If you could at a high level talk about just how you got funding for the project and what it was like in the early days, and then sort of where things are now, and ultimately sort of where people can find Tanoshi.
So in the early days, it was a lot of bootstrapping. So a lot of my personal life savings went into this. This was really a passion of mine. I'd worked for a couple pretty large companies prior to this, Toshiba and Vizio, which were great companies to work for, making pretty mainstream products. We were looking to do something a little more niche. We knew in order to do that, we're going to have to develop a team. So number one most important thing is find people with the passion, the passion for doing something special. There's a lot of people out there very interested in being a part of a startup, But let's be honest, if you're not really passionate about it, it doesn't really matter what job you take. So find the passion, find the people that are excited about it, run with it, get as far as you can. I had quite a few trips to Asia to make sure we can get the right pricing on the right product. I think I interviewed close to 15 factories, which is more than most people will ever have to do. But we want to make sure we, again, hit the right quality, right price points, and that took a little while. And then just patience. We did launch this company a little over 3 years ago. It's been 3 years to get to market. But we're excited. We've done a lot of pivots since then. We've made a lot of changes, really, again, based on customer. So every time we build a product, we get it in the hands of our customers. We do a ton of testing. We collect a ton of feedback. And then we make tweaks. And we just continue to make them until at the end of the day, the customer comes back to us and says, this is perfect. This is what I've always been waiting for. We're actually in our first production run as we speak, and we plan on selling online on Amazon starting next month. But for anyone that wants to save a little money and order and do a little pre-sale order, we are taking pre-sales from our website today, which is www.tanoshikidscomputers.com, and that's Tanoshi spelled Tanoshi.
Perfect. And what was that MSRP again, or what's the pre-sale price?
So pre-sale, we're going out for $150. $50, 25% off. Now until really we get up and going on Amazon, then the price goes back up. So anyone that wants to, it's being sold through Shopify, so a very reputable online source. But yeah, just go to our website. There's a link right there. Click on it. And for only $150, you can be one of the first to order a new Tanoshi Kids computer.
Oh, that is terrific. And I'll get you out of here with this one last one, because you talked about something that again, I think is just so important. You talked about that idea of passion. And one of the things that you shared when we were getting ready to kind of kick things off here was just the importance of Tanoshi being a mission-driven company. So before we go, I was wondering if you could just share that mission with us one more time, so that people really understand the why you're doing this.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, again, our mission really here is to make sure every child has the same opportunity. There's a lot of great products out there which are just, let's be honest, unaffordable to the masses. We want something that everyone can afford to have, that's super easy to set up. You don't need to be that tech savvy. In fact, you don't need to be tech savvy at all. And it just works, and then you can go. I came from not much as a youth myself, lived in poverty for quite a while. My family worked very hard, got us out of that hole. But for a lot of people, that's a struggle. And so there's a lot of sympathy on our team for folks in that situation. We believe, depending on what your family income is, where you live shouldn't determine that you can, develop skills and be on the fast path to a bright academic and a future career. And that's really where we're driven. We're driven to make sure every child has the opportunity to develop the skills that are needed for the jobs of the future.
That is fantastic. So, Brad, thank you again for being with me here today. And one more time, it's Brad Johnston with Tanoshi Computers, and you can find them at TanoshiKidsComputers.com. And Brad, again, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and I wish you a ton of success.
Thank you very much, Bob, and thank you, everybody, for listening.
All right. Well, once again, this was Bob Merriman from the MakerSource podcast. We hope everybody has a great day. We'll talk to you again next time.